Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow guests.
It's Mr. Solis.
All right, and so we're back. It's a new year.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to all. I can truly make the joke that we haven't recorded an episode since last year because Dominic and I have missed the past 2 weeks.
Aha!
And I will be fully honest with the listening audience and say we were going to record today, but I overslept.
Ah, well, that's all right, Jack. I'm sure it's just too much fun. We're ringing in the new year.
Yeah, most definitely. But
what are you guys going to talk about? Anything in particular?
I think what we were going to do is like similar to an end of the year list. We were going to do like a beginning of the year list where I think what we were going to do was 10 games that we recommend you play in the new year, and it doesn't have to be from like a specific year, just 10 games we'd recommend someone to play.
Yeah, like people who, make a New Year's resolution to read more, work out more. 1 year I committed to playing video games more. That was the one that we were all sent home for. So that'd be a great list to hear. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason I got inspired by it was when I went on break. I kind of spent like that first week not really doing much, and then the second week of break I was like, all right, come on, let's try and accomplish something. And so I started playing different games, and then I came up with the idea because I was playing a game from like the PS3 days, and I was like, yo, there's a couple of games that like replaying through are really good. Dom, why don't we do a list like this where we can actually give a shout out to certain games from our childhood and recommend them to others?
Can I hit you with one right now?
Sure.
Crash Bandicoot 4 is a game that came out, I think, last year.
I believe so.
And I haven't touched it, but it's on the list. I played the trilogy that they remastered and released on the Switch. And I played the heck out of that whole trilogy, and so I'm ready as soon as I get my schedule and affairs in order. Yeah, Crash Bandicoot 4. Here we go again, or whatever the tagline was.
Yeah. Very recently, I bought the Arkham Knight collection that they did, like a remaster of that from the PS3 and Xbox days. So I plan to replay through that. I've been replaying through the Assassin's Creed trilogy and the Uncharted trilogy, and it was funny because I was like, I might as well target trilogies because the one that inspired it all was I've decided to replay through the BioShock trilogy because that was a game I played before, but I was like, I was in like middle school, I wasn't as knowledgeable, as skilled on video games. Let me see how it compares to like playing it years later. Yeah, and it all stemmed from that, and so I started exploring different games. And the other main one that I played, which I was surprised I never went out and played, was the Spider-Man game that they released. And so I finished that, and then I'm torn because I wanted to move on to other games, but there was a part of me that was looking at all like the side tasks and like, do I want to 100% this or not?
Yes. That's funny.
So, but, and then obviously we ring in the new year with, as we mentioned, a very special, and I want to say this might be one of the first times I've seen them do this, unless it was, technically it might be the first time they've done a premium live event on the first day of the new year.
Yeah, I wonder that too, how often it's come up, but it is certainly the first time we've heard something described as a premium live event. Jack, what does that imply Raw and SmackDown are? They are basic?
Standard?
Standard is a good one.
Yeah. I don't know. Are we going, again, tying back into quickly the discussion on video games, standard, deluxe, how they have those different versions? I guess this is what they're implying.
Ultra edition, premium?
Yeah. It's premium live event. I mean, something like that.
I will say the funniest one I saw was Simon Miller from What Culture put out a tweet, and he was like, I don't mind the change to premium live event, but if I tell people I'm watching a premium live event, they're gonna think I'm watching some type of other event.
no.
Yeah, and the best case I saw, because I actually didn't quite catch it when I was first watching it. It wasn't until I saw other people bring it up. The logic is, because pay-per-view is essentially outdated, especially the term. It makes
1,000%. It's true. We were calling pay-per-views that were definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it does specify some additional subscription, right?
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law surfaced. I said, I have Peacock. It's $5 a month. He goes, Peacock's free. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And do you realize, Jack, that Peacock is generally free unless you want live access to content? And so I go, if we wanted to get away with just a free Peacock subscription, I'd have to wait for the show to end and watch it after the fact, the replay.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, no, the $5 is worth not being spoiled for me. And Jack, this was almost spoiled for me because, as we talked about before going live, I watched it after it concluded, and you did in parts as well.
Yeah. So, and part for me, I mean, I was able to get through that first part, but the second half inevitably got spoiled for me. But yeah, I know Peacock, it has its tiers where there's the free version, there's the $5 version, and then if you want what was essentially the WWE Network with no ads at all, it's the $10 that you used to pay. But I would gladly take the discounted $5 per month, even if it means having to get ads when I'm trying to do a replay. But it's always different, because when I did the replay for this, there was no ads. But then when I did the replay for I forget what event, there was ads.
It is what it is. And what it is a pretty good show. Jack, if we're talking about a top 10 wrestling matches for 2022, there's some contenders on this card.
Yeah, and especially with things that are happening in the world, there's things bound to change, and that was one of the things that happened with this show. As Brock Lesnar was scheduled to fight Roman Reigns again for the Universal title, and just, I want to say, hours before the show went on, Roman announced that he tested positive for COVID, and everyone was like, well, what happens from there? And much like, I want to say it's one of their best skills of WWE to make do with any change of plan, as if they're almost prepared for it at any point.
I mean, what a call to make on the fly, making what was already a really busy and crowded 4-man, what would you call it? A fatal 4-way for the WWE Championship, a fatal 5-way, including Brock Lesnar. And I'll tell you, Jack, I sat up a little straighter and I made my plans to see the show a little more clear for myself, because this became must-see. Goodness gracious, a lot happens when they do stuff like that. We've seen changes to the card happen, and it usually means something big is going to happen.
Yeah. I think we all remember a couple years ago when I think it was also Roman and Wyatt went out, and then we ended up getting Styles versus Balor at TLC.
Mm-hmm. And we also got Kurt Angle as a member of the Shield.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
So yeah, this is already exciting to 2022.
Yeah, and great start really, and for the most part, a lot of the matches definitely did have plenty of build, especially that fatal 4-way, the 4 men, before Lesnar got inserted into it. They did a really good job of building anticipation and in a sense, I'm trying to think of what the correct word to say is, but anticipation that we didn't know what was going to happen with that match.
Right, exactly. And to add to that, throughout the night, in between the matches, we got a little interview with each competitor, weighing in on how they feel about the match, how they feel about Brock Lesnar's addition to it, and each one let a little bit more of their character come out, right? Yeah. And I think really created this belief that any one of them could feasibly win. The champion did not have to be pinned. There's a whole lot of people at stake. So who's going to take it and who's going to eat the pin?
Yeah. But I real quickly want to bring up, I didn't get to catch it, but I want to bring up the kickoff show, mainly because I want to call and say how terrible of luck does Ridge Holland have?
Goodness gracious. So this was a match that set Cesaro and Ricochet, a mashup of two guys that they don't know what to do with, against Ridge Holland and Sheamus, two tough blokes from the UK.
Yeah, and I bring up his tough luck because, first off, being blunt, he gets injured in the match, but the injury is similar to the one he suffered in NXT in the sense that they were both technically out of his control.
I
know
what you mean. Yeah.
The NXT one was catching a suicide dive, which, ended up injuring his leg, and that was technically out of control. And this one, Ricochet and Cesaro are going for a move where Cesaro's assisting Ricochet to hit him with a splash, and Ricochet essentially stomped right onto his nose.
Right onto his nose. Goodness gracious. What's funny is that, you think Ridge Holland and Sheamus were paired just because of they're from the same part of the world, but now they have even a greater bond because both have incurred facial injuries in the last 12 months. They can have matching face masks, Jack.
I saw someone bring that up too, that they could both bring out the masks together. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past their creative team to do something like that. That's, again, capitalizing on unfortunate circumstances. They will probably make the best out of Ridge Holland's injury.
I mean, they portray themselves as being hard men, so they're going to complain about it, no sir.
Yeah, but just wanted to bring light to that. Hope he recovers well.
And Sheamus finishes the match and even is able to beat the team on his own. I think Ridge Holland was taken to tend to his face.
Yeah. Sheamus pulls off the 2v1 against both men. And then we officially start the show with our SmackDown Tag Team Championship match between the Usos and the New Day.
Isn't it great that the show is called Day One and the Usos come out and they've been down, Jack. They've been down. Since when? Since
day one.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was such I thought that was such a perfect coincidence that they've had that day one thing since I want to say around 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what a perfect pair, especially with the music that their entrance, or I don't know if they changed their entrance music, but I remember their old entrance music would have the day one in it.
Yeah, I think it did get a big old change when they came back, because remember when they were just starting and they were doing the the tribal kind of dance with the tribal makeup. It was way different and cheesier.
Yeah. And then a tale as old as time, the Usos and the New Day feuding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We heard it from commentary, right? How well these men know each other and their offense.
Yeah, and, as much as fans complain, and, rightfully so, complain about the amount of rematches we get, I feel like there's specific, tag teams, solo wrestlers that, no matter how many times they wrestle, the fans will always enjoy it because, they know the story's going to be good, or at the very least, the match is going to be good. And, the Usos and New Day rivalry is essentially that. Anytime these two teams meet, people for the most part generally enjoy it, and it's very reliable.
And we'll get to the end where things really become very different and exciting, and you know what I mean? But I think we forget and take for granted how many of these New Day Uso exchanges happen with Kofi and Big E, or Big E and Xavier Woods, and we've got the combination of Xavier Woods and Kofi, and it just makes things so different, you know what I mean? And is it fresh? Kinda. But we saw, for example, Xavier Woods try to do the Big E part of the midnight, what do they call it?
Midnight Hour.
The Midnight Hour, and he couldn't do it. He's not Big E, right? But you saw him do that part, and you're like, God, it's so funny that, I really needed Big E there. I
remember something similar happened when they first, split the New Day up in the draft. I forgot what match it was, but they hit the Midnight Hour, and we even called attention to it that it didn't put it away, and we were like, oh, it's more than likely because it's not, at least in the headcanon thinking is that, they didn't have the strength of Big E to make that move more effective.
Yeah. So, I mean, this was quite a match. I got a bunch of time and the old "This is awesome" chant from the crowd, and it was deserved.
Yeah, a really great match. As I mentioned, the two teams are as reliable as ever, and I think this was a match that not to say it was a good thing, but I think it benefited from the main event getting canceled because it allowed them to get more time and probably tell the tribal, or not the tribal, the bloodline story more effectively. Because I think the commentary played it up as well, like especially Pat McAfee was saying, and I think they brought it up too, that, they're used to Roman closing out the show, and usually they might be the ones opening for him, So it's like they're used to that, but it was all about, about proving it to Roman and holding on to their
Roman
belt.
was definitely watching from home, and Roman was definitely going to be displeased with anything other than a solid victory.
Yeah, and I think it especially adds to the story that because Roman's not there, the attention's more on them. Whereas if Roman's competing, more people are paying attention to whether Roman is going to lose the title or not. Whereas now it's like, hey, all the attention's on you. He's not here. You got to make sure you hold on to those titles, and they really played it up a lot with, how much anytime, no matter who was in Kingston or Xavier Woods, they would isolate them. They would prevent them from getting tag-ins. With, Kofi being the main one that they wouldn't let him tag Woods in.
Mm-hmm. We also saw the Usos kick out of a lot. I thought they looked really strong there, and New Day looked strong because nothing that the Usos could do could keep them down either. I mean, a double splash, both Usos flying on top of Kofi from both two opposite corners. So they had to bust out something new, Jack. I thought that was great. We've seen these two battle each other for so long. They can't put these guys down with the same old, same old. They needed something new. And what did the Usos bust out on Saturday?
They busted out the Dudley Special 3D.
Goodness gracious. But it's not the 3D anymore. It's the 1D. Yeah. One and done. So says Pat McAfee. And I'm immediately smitten. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard him say that too, and I was like, at first, when he said it's the 1D, I was thinking, is he gonna tie this back into day one or something? But then when I heard him say the one and done, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting play on that title. That's actually real good.
And there's something about how well it fits them using the one, because the Roman and the Usos, they're the one. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's Aaron Hansen of the Game Grumps. He calls it flavor, in video games. It's it's just good flavor.
Yeah.
And Devon approves. I haven't heard from Bubba, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Bubba.
Yeah, I can't remember if I saw anything about Bubba Ray showing approval. I know Devon has, but I know Bubba's definitely the one that everyone was kind of well, it's going to be interesting to see what he says, because I know he said something in the past about, people needing to use other people's moves to, get a pop or get over.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what he says, especially because, you would think the Usos probably asked ahead of time, but, it would be real interesting to see if they only asked Devon and not Bubba, and that's why they did it, and maybe something happens out of that. But
here's a live update, Jack, from Bully Ray's Twitter at BullyRay5150. P.S. Shout out to Cole and at Pat McAfee Show for the love heart at hashtag WWE Day One. And he wrote hashtag one and done. A little rock on sign.
All right, so they get both the Dudleys' approval with that. And
here we go. He also says, with a little gif of Clint Eastwood tipping his hat, he says, "Dear at WWE Usos, nothing but love. XOXO Bubba."
All right.
A ringing endorsement for a Match of the Year contender, because we've only had one, Jack.
Yeah, really good match. Really good start to the show. And then, as a lot of people would say in their opinion, they got the bathroom break match right after.
Goodness gracious. This is a match that we get, Jack, because Tony Storm exited the company rather hastily last week. We were building up towards Storm versus Charlotte Flair. I don't know what happened. You've heard the whispers, but all we know is that match isn't going to happen. And so we get Drew McIntyre versus Madcap Moss.
Yeah, and another thing that also confuses me is I seriously feel like they had announced Shinsuke defending his IC title against Sami Zayn for this pay-per-view, and that didn't happen either.
I think Sami Zayn went and won a
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale. That happened. Wins his shot. I guess they think that because they can make a shift like this, it just fits his character that he'll start complaining about it next time we see him.
Yeah, and I'm hoping they save that for the Rumble rather than like just a random SmackDown episode.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because, for the most part, because of the two Rumbles, the women's and men, they usually give matches more time to fill in those slots.
Yes.
And so that means we hopefully get more than like 5-7 minutes of Nakamura and Zayn going at it again.
I would approve of that. And you know what's funny? It just occurred to me because you said their names. This is a TakeOver Dallas rematch.
Yeah.
And it's not going to begin to compare to that match, Jack. I don't want this match to happen.
Yeah, I can only imagine the comparison.
Oh no! I just became really sad.
It's always so crazy to me because I like a lot of the work he's doing as a heel, but it's just so crazy to me when I see when I saw Bayley and Sami Zayn having like heel runs, and I was like, these were two people in NXT you never thought were ever gonna be heel because of their characters in NXT, and yet here they are somehow making it work.
And guy on Cultaholic, Jack, he just laments that, like, as good a heel as Sammy is, he has to fight like a heel, which means we don't get to see how good a fighter he is.
Yeah.
Because he's got to cower, and he's got to run, and he's got to play up being obnoxious as opposed to just, like, a technical wrestler.
Yeah. I remember that especially being on display when him and Lashley fought at Survivor Series 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't tell, this is just how much of a bathroom break this match was, because we've been talking
I was just about to
stuff.
say, like, the biggest takeaway for me from this match was how long Madcap can wrestle with suspenders before they become an issue. Like, at no point does he comes out, Jack, with suspenders and like dress pants. Like, I don't think he's in wrestling gear. I think he's wrestling in like the same kind of shoes like my dad would wear to church.
Yeah, and oh man, granted to him, as a lot of people say, he has the look, but even in the ring with a guy like Drew, I didn't really feel like he was, in a sense, carrying himself too well. Like,
No.
there was a spot where he, like, caught Drew, I think, for, like, a fall-away slam, and it was, like,
Yes.
so close to, like, Drew not landing correctly, and I was just like, this isn't probably going to plan. And then, to make matters worse, you see spots like that, and then you learn after the show that Drew has apparently been dealing with neck problems, and they wrote him off with a segment that appears later in the show, and you're just like, it probably didn't help him taking bumps like that either.
I never understand that. I always think about it when I hear so-and-so wrestler is dealing with an injury. So they'll write him off. And, like, every time they, like, write off a wrestler, you can't help but think, how are we going to do this without making things worse? Jack, he's got a neck injury, so these two attack his neck. Why couldn't they written him off with a leg thing or an arm thing or an abdomen thing? We go, this guy has serious issues with one of the most important parts of your body. Let's wrap a chair around it. And just tempt fate. Just tempt the fatiest of fate. It's weird.
Yeah, and, Drew wins, and you think they're building him up for one type of, like, Who knows what WrestleMania plans are at this point? You know,
right?
But if it's not Roman versus Drew, then like you just assume Drew's facing him at like the Rumble or Elimination Chamber or Fastlane, whatever pay-per-view fills in within the few spots. But the state of SmackDown really isn't looking too well at the very start of 2022.
Well, the top dog is quarantining, and we'll certainly get into other parts of the card. But what match is next after Drew's handedly beat Madcap Moss? Who we got next?
We have the Street Profits versus my worst prediction of last year.
It's RK Bro, Randy Orton and Matt Riddle, the reigning Raw Tag Team Champions, walking into 2022, almost holding hands. Not only being holding hands, but also endorsed by Atlanta's own Migos.
Yeah, and it was funny because people were like, wouldn't it make more sense for the rap group to come out with the guys like the Street Profits? But that's when people were posting all these photos of Randy Orton and the Migos from like years ago, saying they've been rocking with them since the beginning.
I suppose so.
It was real interesting to see, though. I say that it's always funny.
You know what I really got? I really caught myself marveling at, Jack, the revelation that Angelo Dawkins is wrestling Randy Orton. What universe would that ever gonna happen? Angelo Dawkins tying up with Randy Orton. Or Montez Ford, a guy that we've been told is the future of this company. He just happens to be able to lock up with one of the greatest wrestlers of this generation.
Yeah.
Ric Flair's still going on and on with all his nonsense. One thing he keeps saying is, in a world where we've all learned who Kenny Omega and Daniel Bryan are, AJ Styles, right? He still says, no, it's Randy Orton. It's always going to be Randy Orton. And these guys get to wrestle him.
Yeah, who would have thought, especially, with all of last year and the different feuds Orton has been in, it's it really props to him for stepping back into the tag scene, to really help a lot of these different guys, Who would have thought, a couple of nights ago on Raw, who would have thought Chad Gable would step in the ring with Randy Orton?
Right?
Yeah, honestly pretty crazy and, pretty good tag match as well,
Agreed. Mm-hmm.
I thought the matchup worked really well because the Street Profits are, a very energetic tag team. They're very, high flying mixed with Dawkins, power based moves, mixing the high flying and power with both men. Going against, a more slower paced Randy Orton, not in a bad way. He's more methodical with his wrestling, as they always describe it. And, someone technical like Matt Riddle. So it's four different styles in one ring.
Mm-hmm. And we got to see some fun spots like the double hanging DDT on the Street Profits.
Yeah, I saw that too. And then
Randy Orton has is it a power slam? Power slamming folks left and right?
Yeah. And the interesting story point of the match was, how much in control Orton was versus whenever Riddle was in the ring.
Yes, agreed.
They really played that up a lot where they're playing with what the fans have been thinking is going to happen where Orton gets frustrated with Riddle and finally turns on him. They keep playing with this, but then they always find a way to make it work out in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really interesting story booking because I think what they're going to end up doing, and I hope this isn't a prediction that ends up terribly as well, but I think they're going to go.
You don't want to hear, but go on.
I think they're going to go away from the cliche Randy Orton turns on his partner and maybe find a way for Riddle to turn on him. But, I mean, the only thing that I feel would throw a wrench in that is based off of all I've seen, it seems really difficult to make Matt Riddle a heel. Just because of the goofiness and the connection he has with the fans.
Yeah.
But, like, I only feel that way because I feel like everyone's kind of expecting, Orton to turn on him. And WWE, for the most part, typically leans away from the predictable in certain situations.
In spite of themselves, they like to, like, overthink things. Did you see the Raw spot where Randy Orton pretends to go for the RKO and does the... Ah! I thought of you, Jack. How did they get their way out of this? I wonder. The Royal Rumble is every man for themselves.
Yeah,
Are we heading to a WrestleMania, Jack, that sees the inevitable come to be? I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder too, because
so just to be like obnoxious, right? Mm-hmm. Could Matt Riddle turn on Randy Orton? Could Randy Orton turn on Matt Riddle? What would be like really left of center is if they lose the titles to a formidable team and they just acknowledge that the better team won and they go their separate ways with a handshake and a hug. Well, I guess it's back to the singles division. Yep, and I guess that means we'll be competitors. Well, bro, hug.
I feel like that could also be a viable option for them too, because like I said, it would be really difficult to turn Matt Riddle heel with the current work and gimmick he has, but who knows? They always...
I think Raw is lousy with heels too, right? We need a couple more baby faces running around.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, like, I mean, me, I always try and be optimistic with this company, but don't get me started on their mid-card divisions because it could be so much greater and...
Oh, for sure. And before we leave this match, we have to shout out Matt Riddle's press slam. I mean, his gorilla press Montez forward to the air, setting up the RKO.
Yeah.
Like a alley-oop basketball shot. It was great.
Yeah, that was really great too. RK Bro retains, and based off of what I said, I'm thinking if they do have a tag match at the Rumble, it is more than likely going to be against Alpha Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be interesting to see where that leads to, because I don't know, this feels like Alpha Academy's first big push since they formed.
Yeah.
So, who knows where it could lead? They could either continue the Arcade Bro storyline, or this could be where they lose to, a formidable team.
Mm-hmm. How much time we got, Jack?
11 minutes.
Okay, we got 3 more matches.
All right. The next.
Well, what you want to do?
I think we could cover this one with enough time, and if not, can easily slide into a part 2.
Okay, here we go. We're talking a grudge match between Edge and The Miz. And Jack, this match, I could not care at all about.
In all honesty, I feel the same, and it is no disrespect to the two men, but if everyone's being honest, we want to see Edge against other people, more specifically people he's never faced before.
I'm going to hit you with a hot take, Jack. I'm going to hit you with something real hard, and I want you to be ready. I hope you're sitting down. You say, we want to see Edge fight other people. Jack, I don't want to see Edge. I was never a big Edge guy in the sense that, I didn't buy his shirts, he's not on any of my top anything lists, Yeah. I get that he was good and he did a lot. Like his match with The Undertaker at that WrestleMania, that was good. I look back at that fondly. But I don't know, Jack, there's something about it that, and you know how I know that he knows this? You know how I know that he gets a sense that people don't want to see him? And maybe it's because he's a babyface, and the rated R shtick doesn't work in a PG era with a babyface.
Yeah.
But Jack, why did he come out to the Brood music again?
Yeah, I saw that too.
That's going to the well one too many times. He did the Brood thing where he drops stuff that's not blood, it's tar on The Miz and Maurice at a Raw recently. And you go, why do we keep playing up that one chapter of your career that was about 3 months long?
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah, I brought it up. It was cool to see when he did it at SummerSlam, but when I saw it again, the Brood bath and all that, I was like, okay, it's pretty cool to see, but going to the well one too many times.
So what do you think it is, Jack? Is it the rated R gimmick doesn't work in PG 2022? Is it like a lack of confidence in his abilities to be just an outright babyface? Or is it that Edge just isn't as good as people say he is?
I think it's a mix of that and, even he's similar right now, I would say, to CM Punk, where both men were gone from wrestling. Both men were gone from wrestling for a long time.
Yep.
And when they came back, they had to come back as baby faces because, you're not going to get the crowd to boo them,
Yep.
as soon as they come back. And I only bring up the CM Punk comparison because someone brought it up recently, like a point about CM Punk, and it was that, the people loved CM Punk the best when he was challenging like an authority.
Yeah.
Being that voice of the voiceless,
Mm-hmm.
And similar with Edge, people, it wasn't that they loved him in like the babyface sense, but they enjoyed his work more when he was the heel, and and people were able to like actually hate him,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible observation and comparison, because it's true. And like, how much of the CM Punk do we look back on fondly? How much of his character was resentful of the fans? Remember?
Yeah. And think about it, it was like when he had
Jack, are you still with me? Am I still with you?
Yeah. All right, we're back. That might have sounded awkward on that end, but a couple technical difficulties as to be expected with the Zoom and online era.
We almost made it. We almost made it a whole episode with no issues.
Yeah, but with the time remaining on this episode, we'll just, quickly close out just to prevent, any more losses of connection, potential loss of the episode. Because that was my biggest fear was in front of me, I can see my router. And so I was watching it, hoping that the internet wasn't going out because I was like, I don't want to lose this episode or have any technical issues with it.
I got you, Jack. Don't you fret. We got 3 more matches, and we're going to continue our hot takes, Jack. The hottest of takes. Ooh, my fingers. They're sinking on Edge versus Miz.
Yeah, these hot takes are as hot as Damian Priest's arrow when he shoots it into the Titantron.
He doesn't do that anymore, Jack. He's a different man, a different performer.
All right, so thank you for joining this episode. We'll see you in part 2 where we finish discussing WWE Day 1.